Welcome to week 5. Let's go over a few things. First, discussion board. Thank you for your dedication to that. You have some great ideas for imitating learning within the learning centers you've talked about. The zoo, the post office, the restaurant. They're all very interesting and fun to read about. I want you to continue to think about how could you use learning centers even if you were working with older students, as you will be in the language arts 2 and 3. They still can be applicable, but you have to change them just a little bit. I also want to remind you of what's due by 10 p.m. today. VACA Chapter 4, there will be a quiz on Chapters 3 and 4 on October 3rd, so be looking forward to that. Make sure you visited the Reading Rocket link I provided under announcements, and then hand in your Primer Emergent Reader Review and spelling activity due into the Dropbox tonight by 10. If you could also hand in the student scan and hand in the student example of spelling, that would be very helpful to me as well. Teacher interviews. You did a great job of interviewing veteran teachers. Some of them happen to be reading specialists. I could tell by the enthusiastic writing and the voice that you presented that the professionals are very dedicated to you and to their students, so I'm excited for you. To do, here are things that you're going to work on. Discussion postings. Read Shanker 1 through 26, those are pages, and VACA 146 to 155. I will provide Reading Rocket links in the announcement section of the discussion board for phonemic awareness and the alphabetic principle for you to visit. And then by the end of the week, on Monday at 10 p.m., I just need the directions for your phonemic awareness game. Find the game out on Google somewhere. Don't use the one out of the Shanker text. Maybe your classroom mentor has one that you could use too, that you could adapt. It's something you are creating, so I don't want you to take a boxed one. I want you to go and make your own, because sometimes teachers have to do that. And it gives you a good idea of how phonemic awareness works if you're actually creating the game. So just the directions are due into the Dropbox. For phonemic awareness games, in Shanker pages 20 to 21, there are some examples of games. I want you to challenge you to go find your own, however. Sample directions are posted on D2L under content. So if you're wondering what it should look like, I want you to look at those to make sure you've got all the elements so you can earn all the points possible. If you're missing any of the elements, you're going to lose points. I don't want that for you. Visit the Reading Rockets Phonemic Awareness site. They also have some gaming ideas for you to create. And then remember, you have to play a game with a small group by October 24th. So create the game now, hand in the directions. If there are some, blazing, something wrong with them, I'll let you know. But you have to play the game with a small group of students by October 24th. Let's talk a little bit about the phonemic awareness assessment that you're going to be doing. It's not due yet, but I think it's relevant to talk about this in connection with the game you're creating and the reading that you're doing. It's a nice foundation for this whole process. Take your Shanker text and you're going to be looking at pages 231 to 241. I like how Shanker has structured these assessments for you. Just read through them, but I'm going to point out some high points for you. There are 5 phonemic awareness tests that you will be working with. The idea is that these phonemic awareness assessments are to be used for non-readers or for those students who read very few words. And you'll notice that the first thing it says on page 231 in bold tells you that. So as you're asking your mentor to select a student for you, make sure you're asking for a student who cannot read, or a student who only knows just a very few words to get the best assessment information you possibly can. The tasks that you're going to be getting information on are rhyme production, initial sound recognition, phoneme blending, and phonemic recognition. Now let's talk a little bit about the rhyme production test that you're going to be giving. I think the rest of the tests are pretty self-explanatory and you're going to do fine with them. I do need to talk about a couple of things. You're going to start with the test on page 233. You might find that a student cannot complete this successfully. It is too difficult for them. If that's the case, you will want to go on to page 235, and it says clearly on that page, give this test only when the student fails subtest 1. So if you're finding that they cannot do or they miss 3 consecutive items in a row, stop testing and then go on to 235 because they have what you would call failed. Not that there's a pass-fail, but they're just not doing well. I want you to notice that on these tests, there is a first test and a second test column. Now, the directions say this clearly, but I'm going to emphasize it with you as well. This is not set up to be a pre-test and a post-test format. However, you could use it as such. Use the first test column in scoring to assess their initial ability in, let's for example say, rhyme production. Use the second test to monitor their progress. So let's say you do this first test with a kid and you discover that they need help with rhyme production. You make a rhyming game, you play the rhyming game with this kid and a friend, and then when you're done, you will give them the assessment again to see if they have made progress in understanding rhyming, okay? So it could be used as a pre-test, post-test. You also could say, maybe I need to get additional information. You know, maybe they were nervous the first time and you just feel like you should retest them again on another day. Or maybe the testing situation was really loud, or you were in the hallway and a class passed and they were distracted. Maybe you'll want to give the second test to see you got bad information the first time. So be gracious with yourself and decide how it is you want to use the first test and the second test. You have some options. I want to make some important points about 232. I need to caution you, as it will say important points to remember about kids. They can be so tricky sometimes and surprise you 100% of the time. They may perform poorly for reasons we don't clearly understand. You know, maybe they had a fight with their sister, or maybe they didn't get to sleep last night, or maybe they were out of milk this morning and it threw them off. We just don't know. And so you just cannot expect to understand why kids do poorly. Secondly, we talked about this a little at face-to-face, but they really want to please you. And any cue in your voice, you know, if you start praising them or you've got that positive, happy voice, you want to keep it going all the way throughout because they will change their answers to try to get that positive response out of you. So they're very smart. And I know you're not trying to mislead a child purposely. I just need you to be really conscious and aware of how your voice is making them respond, or you're nodding, or you smile every time, or you're patting them on the back. Just make sure that your cues are consistent so that they're not just guessing to please you. The other piece of advice I have for you is please practice with someone before you go into this to see, do you have any questions? I want you to be confident when you go into work with this student, and I want you to absolutely nail this assessment that you're going to be giving. And if you're just opening the book for the first time, when you get there, you are not going to have the confidence necessary to do a good job and understand how this really works. So just quickly review the do's and the don'ts. Practice with someone, even if it's an adult, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's a parent or someone on the phone, but practice first, please, before you go into the classroom so you have the confidence to do a good job. That's what's important. Lastly, you are going to have a great time with this. I want you to have fun. You're going to make mistakes. You need to be kind to yourself. If you goof, you know, maybe you get to try with another student. Maybe you get to do a second test. Never admit to the student you just goofed. We don't want to do that. But I need you to, you know, A, have fun. Apply it to the real world. You may make mistakes, but you can correct them and it will turn out just fine. So have fun with these assessments. I hope it connects to what you're learning in your reading and what you're understanding on Reading Rockets. I thought this was a good time to talk about this assessment. Again, it's not due yet, but I just wanted to make this connection for you. Have a great week.